My mom and dad got divorced 4 years ago. After the divorce, my mom quickly found a new guy and dragged me halfway across the country to marry him. Now I live with him and his son David together in his house. I always found David a bit weird and strange. He is more of a loner and hasn't really any friends, so I tried to be friendly to him. I pretended to show interest in his hobbies and gave him fashion advice. But I guess this was a mistake, since he started making awkward jokes about how weird it would be if we started dating. He also started to give me unwanted compliments and began acting really bitter towards my boyfriend. I talked to him about this, and to this or so I thought. Yesterday I texted him to ask if I could move a series from his hard drive onto my laptop, and he told me where to find his hard drive. It wasn't where he said it would be, so I looked through his desk and found what I thought was the same hard drive. I plugged it into my laptop and quickly realized it wasn't the same one that he kept the series on. It only had one folder titled Sex Stories. At that point, I should have stopped looking, but I didn't. I know snooping is wrong, and I really have no excuse. As it turned out, the folder contained over 30 sex stories my stepbrother wrote himself. I didn't read all of them, but the few I read all followed more or less the same pattern. The protagonist, who resembles my stepbrother, has a crush on his stepsister, who looks exactly like me. The protagonist is a great guy, and not like all these awful guys who don't respect her or women in general, but his stepsister won't see it until some bullshit happen. Stepsister's BF dumps her for another girl, and she finds comfort in her stepbrother's arms. Or stepsister's BF leaves her shortly before prom, and she is forced to go with her stepbrother, but finds out how great he is, or he saves his stepsister from a drunk in a bar. You get the idea. Then they proceed to have the greatest sex ever, and his stepsister falls in love with him and finally sees what a great guy he is. This whole stuff was truly creepy and freaked the fuck out of me. I got genuinely scared of my stepbro, but when I told my parents about this, they didn't really seem to care and just told him to delete the stories. I got really angry at my parents for not taking my worries seriously. I packed my things and left to stay with my best friend. I don't know where to go from here. What should I do next? This thread proves that a huge majority of people do not understand escalation of behavior. You're all calling him an awkward kid, and I have to say, I don't like that phrasing very much. He is not awkward. He is obsessive. He wrote 30 stories of the same subject material, pretty much all the same scenario with slight differences. Usually people who do write erotic material aren't so transfixed on one type of scenario that they can harp on it 30 plus times. He deserves to be told this behavior is not acceptable, and unfortunately he won't get that here. Best case scenario, Op will move back with their dad and be able to breathe easier. This is the type of behavior that, if it goes unchecked, develops very quickly into stalking and beyond. He will have obsessive, and if we're being frank here, delusional thoughts about whatever next woman comes into his life, and he will start to believe he is entitled to the scenarios he has created in his mind, and that it can be real. Also just wanted to add that, even though, as some of you pointed out, that step-sibling fantasies are very much a thing, and for us all to just check Pornhub, it doesn't stop it from being nasty as shit. Your parents definitely should respond more empathetically about the position this is putting you in and speak with your stepbrother more seriously about moving on from his feelings for you and perhaps seeking therapy. That said, what he is doing was meant to be private and is not illegal, so this is a bit of grey area. 'Cause if his behavior has improved towards you in general, One could argue that he found a healthier outlet for his feelings that he can't really control. I mean, you did know he had a crush on you. Just because you set boundaries with him doesn't mean those feelings went away. He just found a new way to deal with them. Also, did you see the dates on these stories? I think when he wrote the last one is rather important. This may have happened back when he was obviously crushing on you and he hung on to them, but ultimately has forgotten about them, as many of us have forgotten about what we've kept on old hard drives. As the elder sibling, ideally, he would be asked to move out for this inappropriate vibe towards you, but life isn't perfect. Seeing as you're 18, I think it's time to move out or revisit living with your dad if this is making you too uncomfortable. While I totally understand this makes you uncomfortable, it does seem he's not looking to sexually assault you. He's more looking for you to view him differently. I'd be a lot more worried if he was writing rape fantasies. I like writing and I have definitely written things about my crushes, and I would never actually make advances or anything, and writing it sort of gets it out of my head and onto paper. It's pleasing to me to imagine these scenarios, and I know they will never happen, so it only feels a little weird. The stories are in my head anyways, only. Difference is now they're on paper. I would be absolutely mortified if anyone I had written about found what I was writing. And if he is not showing guilt or remorse, that's kind of a red flag. He may have set this up for her to find on purpose, which makes me very uncomfortable. I can't remember the details that well in OP's post, but if this had been going on for a while, he has been writing sexually explicit stories about a minor, which even though the age difference isn't much is 1, illegal, and 2, just plain weird. If he makes her uncomfortable, then her best bet is to leave, although I don't know to where. But there's a very real chance he's just into her, and knows he has no chance, so he's actualizing it as best he can. However, she has every right to find it creepy and no longer want to be around him. If her parents don't care, I would suggest reaching out to her actual dad. Even if he is far away, maybe he could talk some sense into her parents. If he doesn't listen either, then try teachers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc.